The $100,000 Journey. When Fishing Village Kids Learn to Build a Fleet. Part 1. The post-victory hangover and a company's awkward teenage phase. After hitting the $10,000 mark, Min and I no longer walked, we floated. At 17, we saw ourselves as miniature tech giants, self-proclaimed prodigies of the digital age. The growth fund we established sounded as grand as a Silicon Valley investment fund, though in reality, it was just a joint bank account we occasionally used to buy pizza on late-night coding sessions. Drunk on our success, we believed the path to $100,000 would be similar. Work better, work harder, and the money would just roll in. We received so many referrals from EduSphere that our email inboxes exploded. For the first time in our lives, we had to learn to say no to clients, not out of arrogance, but because we physically had no more hands to do the work. We need a name, I declared during a strategic meeting in our office, my bedroom, which still smelled faintly of last night's instant noodles. A name that's catchy, powerful. Min, his eyes still glued to his code, mumbled, Logic Flow Solutions. Sounds smart, efficient. I winced. That sounds like a plumbing company. It needs to be something more explosive. Phoenix Creative Fire. Min finally looked up, staring at me, as if I had just suggested we code an iambic pentameter. Are you trying to scare clients away? That sounds like a failed high school rock band. The debate over the name lasted a week. We considered everything from the boringly safe J&M Digital to the meaninglessly abstract Ethereal Labs. In the end, we decided to shelve it. This was our company's teenage phase, full of energy, a bit reckless, and incredibly awkward in defining its identity. We acted like a newlywed couple trying to decorate their first home. I wanted to hang colorful, abstract paintings, bold design ideas, while Min wanted to install the most efficient smart home system, optimized, rigid processes. We were both perfect partners and sworn enemies. This chaos, while exhausting, was precisely what created the magic. We were still operating as a two-man band, playing increasingly complex music, but the stage was getting smaller. We realized a harsh truth. Two people cannot form a symphony orchestra. Part 2. The terrifying leap. Hiring our first employee. The problem became glaringly obvious one Tuesday evening. We had 3 incredibly attractive potential projects in our inbox, each worth several $1,000s. But we were completely bogged down with our 2 current projects. We'll have to turn them down, Min said, his voice full of regret. No, I protested. This is money, Min. This is the growth fund. We can't just throw it away. So, are you planning on growing extra arms? Min retorted. Or will we just stop sleeping altogether? And then, an idea sparked in my mind. An idea that was both exhilarating and terrifying. We hire someone. Min stopped typing. The room fell silent. The concept of hiring someone was as foreign to us as space travel. Who were we to hire anyone? 2 17-year-old kids, working out a bedroom, paying a real adult salary? It sounded like a joke. The fear was real. How do you post a job ad? How do you conduct an interview? What about the contract? What if we hired the wrong person? What if they discovered our headquarters was actually my bedroom and laugh in our faces? But necessity triumphed over fear. We decided we didn't need someone to design or code, but to do the one thing we both hated and were terrible at. Management. Project management, client management, management of our own chaos. We posted a small ad on a job forum, describing a vague position called Digital Project Coordinator. We interviewed 3 people. The first talked more than I did, making outlandish promises. The second seemed competent, but looked at us with, "What do these kids know about business?" eyes. The third was Ms. Lin. She walked into the interview room, a coffee shop we had borrowed for the occasion. A woman in her late 20s with a calm demeanor and a notebook. She didn't boast. She asked questions. What is your current workflow? What tools do you use to track progress? When there's a conflict with a client over requirements, how do you handle it? Each of her questions was like a needle popping our bubble of self-delusion. Workflow, tools, conflict resolution. We just had arguments and work. I stammered, trying to explain my agile methodology, while Min attempted to describe his internal logic system. Ms. Lin listened, nodded, and then said something that stunned us. "I see great potential here, but also organized chaos. You need a system. I can help build it." She didn't look down on us for our age. She looked straight at the problem. We had found the person we needed. That day, with trembling hands, we made her a job offer. When Ms. Lin accepted, we were both overjoyed and terrified. Our two-person ship had just taken on a new crew member, and she was about to change everything. Part 3, Building the Machine, The Rise of the System. Ms. Lin's first week was a culture shock. She came to the office, looked at my collection of empty energy drink cans and instant noodle bowls, and smiled professionally. "All right, first things first," she said. "We need a real workspace." 2 weeks later, we moved into a small co-working office. It was a real space with proper desks and chairs, a meeting room, and most importantly, no bed. It was the first symbolic step, transforming us from two freelancers into a small company. Next, Ms. Lin introduced us to the enemy of chaos, Asana, a project management software. From now on, she announced, every task, every client request, every deadline must be created as a task in Asana. No more sticky notes, no more late-night Zalo messages. Min nearly cried with joy. He loved systems, logic, clarity. To Min, Asana was like a Bach symphony. He immediately created automated workflows, project templates, and performance dashboards. I was the opposite. Initially, I hated Asana. It was rigid. It was cold. "Ms. Lin," I whined, "I can't just have a brilliant creative idea and then have to fumble around creating a task. It kills the inspiration." Ms. Lin patiently explained, "Jack, a system doesn't kill creativity. It creates space for creativity. When you don't have to worry about missing deadlines or forgetting client requests, your brain is free to soar." The battle between me and the system lasted a month. But gradually, I began to see that Ms. Lin was right. Having a clear process for client intake, quoting, contracts, and project delivery freed us from countless tedious administrative tasks. I had more time to focus on what I did best, talking to clients, brainstorming, and designing. Min could focus on building flawless technical products. Ms. Lin was the glue that held it all together. We were no longer a rock band. We were becoming a jazz ensemble. There was structure, there were rules, but there was still room for improvisation and individual brilliance. The machine had started running, and it was ready for bigger challenges. Part 4, The Golden Goose and the Gilded Cage. Thanks to our professional system and growing reputation, we landed a real whale. Not a blue whale, but a giant humpback whale. It was FinCore, a financial technology, fintech, company from Europe looking to expand into the Southeast Asian market. They didn't just want a website. They wanted a complete digital ecosystem, a complex trading platform, mobile apps for both iOS and Android, and a comprehensive launch marketing campaign. The contract was worth $40,000. When that number appeared in the contract, Min and I looked at each other, speechless. This figure was more than everything we had earned combined. This was the ticket that would take us straight to the $100,000 milestone. We celebrated. We upgraded our computers, bought better chairs, and even threw a small party for our 3-person company. FinCore became our golden goose. Their money flowed in steadily, covering all our expenses and generating a huge profit. We felt invincible. But the golden goose came with a gilded cage. The FinCore project was so large, so complex, that it consumed nearly 80% of our time and resources. Other smaller clients were pushed to the back burner. Our own product ideas were shelved. FinCore's project manager, a man named Carl, was extremely demanding and meticulous. He would call at 10 p.m. Vietnam time, afternoon in Europe, to request a minor change to a button's color. We became more of a department within FinCore than an independent partner. Jack, the brand strategist, now spent most of his time tweaking a button's color to Carl's liking. Min, the system architect, had to pause his research into new technologies to fix trivial bugs on their platform. Ms. Lin, the manager of order, became more like a messenger between us and the difficult client. The work wasn't fun anymore. Creativity was stifled by meticulous demands and the rigid processes of a large corporation. We were making more money than ever, but we felt emptier than ever. We had fallen into a classic business trap without even realizing it. The trap of dependency. Over 70% of our revenue came from a single source. We were standing on a very tall, very shaky pillar. Part 5. The day the goose got sick, the inevitable crisis. The nightmare happened on a Thursday morning. An email from FinCor's headquarters, not from Carl. The subject line, Notice of Strategic Restructuring. My heart sank. The email announced that FinCor had been acquired by a larger bank, and during the merger, all projects with external contractors would be temporarily suspended for reevaluation. Temporarily suspended was a polite term for terminated. The contract was frozen. The final payment, worth $15,000, was withheld indefinitely. Our golden goose wasn't just sick, it had died suddenly. Silence enveloped our small office. Our revenue dropped by 70% overnight, but our expenses didn't. Office rent, Ms. Lin's salary, software costs, all remained. We looked at the balance sheet. At this rate, we would be out of money in 3 months. Panic began to set in. I told you, Min nearly shouted, his usual calmness gone. I told you we were too dependent on them. We should have spent time developing other clients. Then why didn't you do anything? I retorted, my defensiveness flaring. You were just as caught up in that project as I was. Don't blame me. It was our first major argument since founding the company. It was fierce, filled with accusations and frustration. Ms. Lin had to intervene. Stop it, she said firmly. Blaming each other now won't solve anything. We are a team. We have to find a way out of this together. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat alone in the dark office, looking out at the street. The feeling of failure was worse than that 1-star review years ago. This time, I wasn't alone. I had a responsibility to Min, to Ms. Lin. I had brought them onto this ship, and now it was sinking. I learned a painful lesson. Making money is hard, but keeping and growing it is 10 times harder. And dependency, in any form, is the enemy of sustainability. Part 6. Back to basics, but stronger. After that night of crisis, we held a survival meeting. No more lofty ideas or grand plans. Just one single question. What do we do to survive? It was in our darkest moment that each person's character shone through. Ms. Lin, with astonishing calmness, presented a cost-cutting plan. She renegotiated the office rent, canceled unnecessary software subscriptions, and built a lean financial model to extend our runway from 3 months to 6. She was the anchor that kept our ship from capsizing in the storm. I, swallowing my pride, did something I'd never done before. I called our old clients, the ones we had turned down or paid less attention to during the FinCor era. I didn't call to sell. I called to check in. Hi, it's Jack. It's been a while. How's business? Are you facing any digital challenges I could offer some free advice on? A few were surprised, but many were appreciative. They share their problems. And from those conversations, we secured small projects. A $2,000 website here, a $500 per month social media management contract there. They weren't as big as FinCor, but they were real cash flow, helping us breathe. I learned that relationships are more important than contracts. Min, meanwhile, locked himself in the coding room for 2 weeks. When he emerged, his eyes were dark-ringed but held a spark of light. He had created something he called the Starter Kit. It was a pre-built website source code package for small businesses, with the most common features already integrated. We can't build everything from scratch for every small client anymore. It's too time-consuming, Min explained. With the Starter Kit, we can create a high-quality website for them in just a week instead of a month. We can charge less, but our profit margin is higher because we save time. We can serve more clients. It was a moment of genius. The crisis had forced us to innovate. It had forced us to find a way to work smarter, not just harder. Part 7. The Phoenix Rises. The road to $100,000. We completely restructured our business model. We set a new rule. Never let a single client account for more than 25% of our revenue. We launched a quick website service package based on Min's starter kit. It was an instant success. Small businesses who previously couldn't afford to work with us now flocked to us. We had democratized our service. I focused on building relationships and selling custom service packages to larger clients, while the team, now with an intern designer, handled the quick website projects. Ms. Lin coordinated everything, ensuring it all ran like a well-oiled machine. Our revenue didn't skyrocket like in the FinCore days, but it grew steadily and solidly. It came from 15 to 20 different sources instead of just one. We felt safer. We were building a fleet of many small ships instead of betting on a single Titanic. 6 months after the crisis, one late afternoon, Ms. Lin called Min and me into the meeting room. She projected a chart onto the screen. It was the revenue chart. It was climbing steadily, and at the top, a number was circled in red. Total accumulated revenue, $101,450. We had done it. We had crossed the $100,000 mark. Not with a spectacular leap, but by crawling out of a deep hole, step by step, and rebuilding everything from the foundation up. There was no champagne, no lavish party. Just me, Min, and Ms. Lin looking at each other, sharing a quiet smile. It was a smile of relief, of pride, and of mutual respect. We had faced failure and had not broken. We had turned a crisis into an opportunity. Part 8. Looking back from a new peak. The journey from $10,000 to $100,000 was not a straight line. It was a road full of potholes, a free fall, and a climb back up. It taught me lessons more valuable than money. Systems create freedom. Creativity soars highest when it's built on a solid foundation of processes and systems. Never build your house on someone else's land. Relying on a single client is a form of business suicide. Diversification is the key to survival. People are the greatest asset. Hiring the right person can change a company's destiny. Ms. Lin wasn't just an employee. She was a partner, a mentor. Crisis is a crucible. The toughest times are when you are forced to innovate and find the best version of yourself. Build a fleet, not a Titanic. Sustainable growth comes from many stable revenue streams, not from a single, massive contract. The $100,000 figure wasn't the destination. It was a checkpoint, proof that we could build a real business. Now, the question was no longer, how do we make money, but what can we build that has long-term value? A bigger company? Our own software product? The road to $1 million lies ahead. It will require different skills: leadership, strategic vision, building a company culture. I don't know what monsters we'll face on that journey, but I know one thing for sure. I won't be going alone. I have Min, I have Ms. Lin, and I have a small fleet behind me. The sea is still vast, but this time, we are ready for any storm.